The war had lasted 17 cycles. 12 different species from across the galaxy had joined together to fight the Horde. There were insect-like creatures that moved from planet to planet, eating everything in their path. They had destroyed hundreds of worlds. They showed no mercy. They knew no fear. And they were winning. Admiral stood in the center of the War Council chamber on Station Prime. The room was massive, built to hold representatives from all the allied species. Giant screens covered the walls, showing maps of the war. Red marks covered most of those maps. Red meant territory. Red meant death. Was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting this war for 8 years. He had watched friends die. He had ordered soldiers into battles they could not win, but he had never stopped believing that humanity could make a difference. The problem was that nobody else believed it. Around him stood the representatives of the elder races. They were tall and thin, their bodies made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. They were ancient and wise, and they looked at humans the way adults look at small children. The Thornbacks were the opposite. They were huge, covered in thick armor plates with 4 arms and heads like angry bulls. They were the strongest warriors in the coalition, and they knew it. High Commander of the raised one crystal hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet. "We are here to discuss the allocation of resources," said. His voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "The front has fallen. We must decide where to send our remaining supplies." "The human contingent has made a request," said General of the Thornbacks. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "They want additional supply routes open to support their forces." "How many humans fight in this war?" asked another delegate. 4,000, said. He made a sound that might have been laughter. 4,000 soldiers. The Thornback Empire has sent 2 million. Felt Lieutenant stiffen beside him. She was young, barely 30, but she had seen more combat than most soldiers twice her age. Her hands were from a fight on station where she had killed 11 warriors with nothing but a broken rifle and her bare fists. "With respect," said, keeping his voice calm, "I believe our contribution has been undervalued." More laughter from around the chamber. The sound hurt but did not show it. "Human," said, and his tone was almost kind, "your species is very young. You have only been traveling between stars for 200 years. We appreciate your courage. We truly do. But this is not a war that will be won by courage alone. It will be won by numbers, by firepower, by resources." "We cannot waste supplies on symbolic gestures," added. "Your 4,000 soldiers are brave. They fight well, but they are a drop of water in an ocean of blood." Looked at, she met his eyes and nodded slightly. They had prepared for this moment. They had known the council would dismiss them. They had brought proof. "High Commander," said, "I understand your position. Truly I do. But before you make your final decision, I would ask that you review our combat statistics." Tilted his crystal head. "Your statistics?" "Yes, the numbers from every engagement where human forces have fought. I think you will find them interesting." Snorted. "Numbers do not lie. If your numbers were impressive, we would already know." "Would you," asked quietly, "have you ever actually looked at them?" Silence fell over the chamber. The representatives looked at each other. In truth, none of them had ever bothered to examine human combat records in detail. Why would they? Humans were small, soft, weak. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They were the youngest and smallest member of the coalition. They were barely worth noticing. "Very well," said after a long pause. "Present your statistics, but I warn you, Admiral, if you are wasting the Council's time, there will be consequences." "I understand," said. He turned to the third member of his team, a young woman who had been standing silently in the shadows. "Senior Analyst, please begin." Stepped forward. She was small, even by human standards, with sharp eyes behind simple glasses. Before the war, she had been a professor of mathematics at a university in Seoul. Now she turned those mathematical skills toward a different purpose. She carried a data pad in her hands. Her fingers moved across it and the giant screens on the walls flickered. The war maps disappeared. In their place appeared rows of numbers. "These are the official coalition combat metrics," said. Her voice was soft but clear. "Specifically, kill ratios. For those unfamiliar, this measures how many enemy combatants each soldier eliminates during a standard engagement period." The representatives settled into their seats. They expected nothing surprising. They were about to be proven very, very wrong. Looked up at the screens, then back at the council. Her face showed no emotion, but could see the smallest hint of a smile at the corner of her mouth. "Let us begin," she said. And everything changed. Let the silence build. She had learned long ago that numbers meant nothing without the right presentation. People needed to feel the weight of data, not just see it. "Kill ratio," she began, "is the most important measure of combat effectiveness. It tells us how many enemies one soldier can defeat. A ratio of 2 to 1 means each soldier kills 2 enemies before being killed or removed from combat. A ratio of 10 to 1 is considered excellent." She tapped her data pad. The first set of numbers appeared on the screen. The aquatic forces have a kill ratio of 1.4 to 1. This is expected. They are primarily a defensive species. They protect their water worlds admirably, but they struggle in offensive operations. The representative, a creature that looked like a walking octopus in a water-filled suit, nodded slowly. This was fair. This was accurate. The crystalline infantry has a kill ratio of 3.2 to 1. Soft sounds of approval came from the delegates. 3 to 1 was good. It was respectable. The Thornback Heavy Assault Divisions, continued, have the highest kill ratio among the elder races, 7.8 to 1. General straightened with pride. His massive chest swelled. The Thornbacks were the finest warriors in the galaxy. Everyone knew this. 7.8 to 1 proved it. "Impressive numbers," said. "The Thornbacks continue to carry this war on their backs. Now what of the humans? 1 to 1. Perhaps 1.5. Did not answer immediately. She looked down at her data pad, then back up at the screen. Her finger hovered over the button that would reveal the human statistics. "These numbers have been 6 times, she said quietly. "I have checked them personally. I have had independent analysts check them. There is no error." "Just show us," growled. "We do not have time for drama." "Press the button." The number appeared on every screen in the chamber. It was large. It was impossible to miss. 2473 to 1. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The number hung in the air like a living thing. 247.3. Not 7. Not 17. Not even 70. 247. That started then stopped. He tried again. "That cannot be correct." "It is correct," said calmly. "Your equipment must be broken," a delegate said. "Your measuring systems must be damaged." "I used coalition standard equipment, coalition standard methods, the same methods used to calculate Thornback ratios." Was staring at the number with an expression that might have been anger or might have been fear. "This is a trick, some kind of human deception." "It is not a trick," stepped forward. "These numbers come from 12 separate engagements where human forces operated independently. Every engagement has been documented. Every kill has been confirmed." 12 engagements added. The Battle of Station, the offensive, the Siege of Dark Harbor, the defense of Colony 7, should I continue? "Dark Harbor," whispered one of the. "That mission was classified as impossible. We sent 3 full divisions to support the human unit there." "Those divisions never arrived," said. "They ambushed them in transit. 14 Marines held the reactor core alone for 9 days. 14, voice cracked slightly. 14 soldiers held Dark Harbor for 9 days. "Staff Sergeant commanded the defense," said. His squad killed over 4,000 warriors before extraction finally arrived. 4,000, repeated the number like he did not understand its meaning. 14 humans killed 4,000. 285 to 1, said quietly. That particular engagement was above average. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives were shouting, demanding explanations, accusing the humans of lying. They were running their own calculations, their crystal bodies flashing with confused light. The Thornbacks were arguing among themselves, their deep voices shaking the walls. Raised his hand for silence. It took a long time for the chamber to quiet down. "Admiral," he said slowly, "you will explain this. You will explain how a species with no natural weapons, no armor, no biological advantages can achieve these numbers. You will explain it now." Looked around the chamber. Every eye was on him. Every ear was listening. "High Commander," he said, "I could explain our training methods. I could explain our weapons technology. I could explain our tactical doctrines, but none of that would give you the real answer." "Then what is the real answer?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had seen too much death and kept fighting anyway. They believe that overwhelming force creates fear. They believe that superior numbers guarantee victory. They believe that prey, when faced with certain death, will freeze or flee. He paused. They have never fought humans before. They do not understand what we are. "And what are you?" asked quietly. "We are the species that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. We are the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. We are the species that split the atom and walked on our moon." His voice grew stronger. "We are the species that looks at impossible odds and says, 'Let us try anyway.' They expect us to fear death. They do not understand that we have been making peace with death since the first human stood upright and faced a predator 10 times their size." He let the words settle. "We are not brave despite being weak. We are brave because we have always been weak. And we learned long ago that the only way to survive is to be more dangerous than anything that hunts us." The council demanded proof. Numbers on a screen were not enough. They wanted to hear from the soldiers themselves. They wanted to look into human eyes and understand how such things were possible. Had expected this, he had brought witnesses. The first to speak was Captain. She walked to the center of the chamber with steady steps, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She was not tall. She was not physically impressive. But there was something in the way she moved that made larger beings step aside. Burn scars covered the left side of her neck and ran down her arms. She had earned those scars at Mining Colony 7, where a flamethrower had caught her during a rescue operation. She had kept fighting with her skin still smoking. "Tell us about Colony 7, said. Nodded. Her voice was calm, almost flat, like she was reporting weather conditions instead of describing one of the bloodiest battles of the war. 200 civilians were trapped behind enemy lines, miners and their families. They had surrounded the colony and were moving in for the kill. Standard tactics. They liked to take prisoners for their breeding pits. Several made sounds of distress. The breeding pits were the worst part of warfare. They used captured aliens as living incubators for their young. It was a fate worse than death. My platoon was 43 Marines, continued. We were the closest unit. Command told us that extraction was impossible. They had too many soldiers between us and the colony. They told us to make our deaths meaningful. What did that mean? Asked a delegate. It meant they expected us to die. They wanted us to kill as many as possible before we fell, a sacrifice to slow the enemy down. His jaw tightened slightly. I told my soldiers something different. I told them we were not going to die. I told them we were going to save those civilians and go home. Against how many? Asked. Intelligence said 800. They were wrong. They were closer to 1,200. They had been reinforced during the night. 1,200 against 43. Yes. leaned forward. His forearms were crossed over his massive chest. What happened? We attacked at dawn. They did not expect it. They thought we would try to defend, to hold a position. They did not understand that humans prefer to attack. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. We hit them in 3 waves. First wave created chaos. Second wave punched through to the civilians. Third wave held the escape route open. Your casualties: 6 killed, 11 wounded. All 200 civilians reached the evacuation ships. The chamber was silent, made a small gesture with his crystal hands. You killed over 1,000 and lost only 6 soldiers. We lost 6 friends, corrected quietly, but yes, the math is correct. The second witness was Master Sergeant. He was older then, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. His left arm was gone, replaced by military prosthetics that gleamed under the chamber lights. Terminus Prime, he said before anyone could ask. I held the bridge for 41 hours. Alone, asked. I started with a squad of 12. By the end, there were 3 of us left standing. How many attacked the bridge? Thought for a moment. We stopped counting after the first 1,000. The bodies piled so high we had to clear them away to maintain our firing lines. 41 hours, said slowly. How did you maintain ammunition for 41 hours of continuous combat? We did not, flexed his prosthetic arm. The metal fingers clicked and whirred. We ran out of ammunition after 16 hours. After that, we used captured weapons. When those broke, we used knives. When the knives became dull, we used rocks and pieces of broken equipment. You fought warriors with rocks. With whatever we could find. His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was describing a normal day at work. They are strong, but they are not smart. They attack in straight lines. They do not adapt. They do not learn. Every hour they charged the bridge in the same way. Every hour we killed them in the same way. Why did you not retreat? Why not fall back to a more defensible position? Because there were civilians behind us. 50,000 refugees trying to reach the evacuation zone. If we lost that bridge, they would all die. Looked directly at. Thornbacks retreat when the situation becomes hopeless. Humans do not. When the situation becomes hopeless, that is when we become most dangerous. The final witness was the youngest. Private walked to the center of the chamber with a slight limp. She was barely 22 years old. Her face still held traces of baby fat. She looked like someone's daughter, someone's little sister. She had killed 87 warriors at Ridge. We were a scouting unit, she said softly. 5 soldiers. We were supposed to observe and report, no direct engagement. What happened? Prompted gently. We found a breeding pit. His voice trembled slightly, but she controlled it. They had captured a refugee convoy, about 60 civilians. They were being used as incubators. Several delegates made sounds of pure grief. To hear of their own people suffering this fate was almost too much to bear. Command told us to mark the coordinates and wait for a strike team, but the implementation had already begun. By the time a strike team arrived, most of the civilians would be dead. Hands curled into fists. Sergeant turned off our communications. He looked at us and said, "Anyone who wants to follow orders can stay here. Anyone who wants to be human can come with me." You attacked a fortified breeding pit with 5 soldiers. We attacked with 5 soldiers. We saved 47 civilians. Wiped her eyes. Sergeant died getting them out, but he died smiling. He died knowing he had done the right thing. The chamber was completely silent. Even the Thornbacks, who prided themselves on their warrior culture, had no words. Stepped forward one final time. This is what you do not understand about humanity. We do not fight because we think we will win. We fight because fighting is right. We fight because surrender is not something we know how to do. The think death is the ultimate threat. They do not understand that we have been living with death since the beginning of our species. We are not afraid to die. We are afraid to die without having done everything we could. High Commander called for a recess. The council needed time to process what they had heard. The representatives filed out of the main chamber and gathered in smaller rooms, talking in hushed voices. The air was thick with confusion and disbelief. Found a quiet corner near a window that looked out at the stars. Stood beside him, her arms crossed. "They do not believe us," she said. "They believe us," replied. "That is the problem. Believing us means everything they thought they knew about the universe is wrong." Across the station, the alien delegates were having similar conversations. General stood with 3 other Thornback commanders in a private meeting room. His 4 arms were moving constantly, a sign of deep agitation in his species. "The numbers cannot be real," one commander said. "Humans are soft, they break easily. I have seen their bodies. They have no armor, no natural weapons, no venom, no regeneration." "I thought the same," replied. "But I pulled the combat footage from Dark Harbor. I watched 14 humans hold a reactor core against wave after wave of assault. I watched them fight with broken bones. I watched them fight with missing limbs. I watched one soldier, a female no larger than a Thornback child, kill 17 warriors with a metal pipe after her weapons were destroyed." "How is this possible?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost afraid. "Do you know what planet Earth is like? I researched it after seeing the footage. The humans call it a paradise, a garden world, but it is nothing of the sort. Earth is covered with predators, venomous creatures, diseases that kill millions, natural disasters that destroy entire cities. The planet itself seems designed to kill everything that lives on it. All planets have challenges. Not like this. On Earth there is a creature called a mosquito. It is tiny, smaller than my smallest finger. It has killed more humans than all their wars combined, and they still exist. The humans never surrendered to them. They never gave up." Shook his head slowly. "They have been fighting to survive since the moment their species was born. This war against thee is nothing new to them. It is just another battle in an endless war they have been fighting forever." In another room, the delegates were running calculations on their data crystals. Their bodies flickered with agitated light. "There must be an explanation," one delegate said. "Some biological factor we have missed, some technological advantage they have hidden." "I spoke with their analyst," replied. "The one called, she explained their training methods. She explained their tactics. Nothing she said was beyond our understanding. We could implement the same methods." "Then why have we not achieved similar results?" "Because methods are not enough." Touched his crystal chest where his species kept their deepest emotions. "The humans have something we do not, something that cannot be taught or trained. They believe truly and completely that death is not the worst thing that can happen. They believe that failure is worse. They believe that giving up is worse. That is irrational." "Yes, and that irrationality makes them the most dangerous species in this war." Back in the main corridor, Analyst was surrounded by curious aliens. They bombarded her with questions about human biology, human psychology, human history. She answered each one patiently, her soft voice carrying surprising weight. "Your species evolved as persistent hunters," a scientist noted. "You would chase prey for days until they collapsed from exhaustion." "That is correct." "But why? You have no speed advantage, no strength advantage. Why would you develop such a strategy?" Smiled slightly. "Because we refused to accept that we could not win. Other predators would see prey escape and give up. Humans would see prey escape and think, not yet, I will follow, I will wait, I will win eventually." "This seems inefficient." "It was extremely efficient. We ate very well." Smile grew slightly wider. "And we developed the most important trait of our species, patience, determination, the absolute refusal to quit. A human who has decided to do something will keep trying until they succeed or die. There is no third option." Captain had found a training room on the station. She was practicing hand-to-hand combat techniques against a holographic opponent. Her movements were precise and brutal. Each strike was designed to kill or disable with maximum efficiency. A young watched from the doorway, fascinated and slightly horrified. "You move like a predator," the said. Paused her training. "We are predators. That is what the other species do not understand. Humans are not prey that learn to fight. We are predators that learn to cooperate." "But you protect the weak. You rescued those civilians at Colony 7. "Yes, because they were our civilians, our people, our responsibility," wiped sweat from her forehead. "That is the other thing about humans. We form tribes, we form families. We form bonds that cannot be broken. When you threaten someone a human loves, you are not facing one human. You are facing everyone that human has ever loved, everyone who has ever loved them. You are facing their parents, their children, their friends, their ancestors, and their descendants. You are facing 10,000 years of human history, all focused on destroying you." "That sounds terrifying." "It should," resumed her training. Her fists blurred through the air. "They made a mistake when they threatened the galaxy. They united species that had never worked together before, and they included humans in that coalition. Now they will learn what happens when you give humans a common enemy." The recess ended after 3 hours. The representatives filed back into the main chamber. Something had changed. The way they looked at the human delegation was different now. There was no more pity in their eyes. There was respect. There was curiosity, and in some cases there was fear. "Notice the change." He stood a little. The war was about to take a very different turn. High Commander called the chamber to order. The noise faded slowly. Every representative found their seat. Every eye turned toward the center of the room where the human delegation stood. Waited, stood beside him, her face calm but her heart pounding, held her data pad against her chest like a shield. This was the moment that would decide everything. "The Council has examined your evidence," began. His crystal body glowed with soft blue light, a sign of serious emotion in his species. "We have your statistics through independent analysis. We have reviewed combat footage that we had previously dismissed as corrupted because it seemed impossible." He paused. The silence was heavy. "We made several errors in our assessment of humanity. We judged you by your numbers. We judged you by your physical size. We judged you by your apparent weakness." Another pause. "We did not judge you by your spirit. We did not judge you by your will. We were wrong." General rose from his seat. His massive form cast shadows across the chamber floor. For a moment, thought the Thornback general might attack them. Instead, did something unexpected. He bowed. It was not a deep bow. Thornbacks were too proud for that. But it was a bow of respect, one warrior to another. Around the chamber, other Thornback representatives followed their general's lead. "The Thornback Empire formally requests that human tactical advisors be assigned to all our divisions," said. His voice was rough with emotion. "We have strength. We have armor. We have numbers. But we have forgotten how to fight like we have nothing to lose. We would learn this again from humanity." Nodded slowly. "The Confederacy supports this request. We would also like to study human training methods, human pain tolerance, human psychological conditioning, not to copy them. We know we cannot become human, but perhaps we can learn from you." One by one, the other species added their voices. The wanted human marines to help defend their water worlds. The crystalline beings wanted to understand how humans processed fear. Everyone wanted something from the species they had dismissed as irrelevant just hours before. Felt a lump forming in his throat. He had hoped for approval of the supply routes. He had never imagined this. "Admiral," said, "the Council approves your request for additional supply routes. We also approve transport vessels for human reinforcements. But more than that, we approve a complete restructuring of Coalition tactical doctrine. Human methods will be studied and, where possible, implemented across all member species." "High Commander," said carefully, "I am honored, but I must warn you. Human methods are not easy. They require a willingness to suffer, a willingness to die, a willingness to keep fighting when every logical calculation says you should surrender. We understand, moved closer to, despite the difference in their heights, they looked at each other as equals. We have been fighting this war for 17 cycles. We have lost millions of soldiers. We have lost hundreds of worlds. And we have been losing because we fight to survive. You fight to win. There is a difference. 3 cycles later, the war ended. It did not end with a final battle. It did not end with the destruction of the. It ended with something the galaxy had never seen before. The sued for peace. Their losses had become unsustainable. For 17 cycles, they had conquered everything in their path. They had destroyed civilizations. They had consumed entire species. They had never been stopped. Then they met humanity. The new coalition tactics, based on human methods, had turned the war around completely. Species that had always fought defensively began attacking. Species that had always retreated began holding their ground. Those who had never faced true resistance did not know how to respond. In the final surrender negotiations, the War Queen requested a meeting with a human representative. The coalition sent Staff Sergeant, the hero of Dark Harbor, the man who had held a reactor core for 9 days with only 13 other soldiers. The War Queen was massive. Her body was covered in black armor plates. Her eyes were like dark pools of oil. She had conquered more worlds than any ruler in history. She looked down at the small human standing before her. "You are tiny," she said through a translator device. "You are soft. You have no venom, no armor, no claws. How did your kind defeat us?" Looked up at her without fear. He had faced worse than this. He had faced 10,000 warriors coming for his blood. One queen was nothing. "Your Majesty," he said, "where we come from, everything is trying to kill us. It has always been this way. Our planet is full of predators, diseases, disasters. Our own history is written in blood. Your horde was just one more thing on a very long list of things that wanted us dead." The War Queen was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "We will not trouble your coalition again. The universe is vast. We will find other prey, prey that knows when it is beaten." "Good hunting," said pleasantly. He even smiled. "And if you ever change your mind about leaving us alone, we will be here. We are not going anywhere. We never do." The left coalition space within the cycle. They never returned. Earth's 4,000 Marines went home as heroes. Monuments were built on a dozen worlds. Songs were written in 100 languages. The species that had dismissed humanity as weak and irrelevant now told stories of human courage to their children. And across the galaxy, a new proverb spread from species to species, from world to world, from star to star. "If you must make an enemy, let it be anyone but a human. For humans do not know how to lose. They do not know how to give up. They do not know how to die quietly. Give a human a reason to fight, and they will fight forever. Give a human someone to protect, and they will move mountains. Give a human a cause worth dying for, and they will make you regret ever threatening it." They had conquered the galaxy. They had destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had never been stopped. Until they met humanity. And humanity asked a simple question: is that all you have? It was not enough. It would never be enough. Because somewhere in the human heart there is a fire that cannot be extinguished, a determination that cannot be broken, a will that cannot be defeated. The kill ratio for one Earth Marine was 247 to 1. But the real answer was something the numbers could never capture. The real answer was this: enough. Always enough.